Hello and welcome to the brand new European Cricket Studio. Moved over from Instagram Live onto Facebook. There's 16 episodes from when we were on Instagram that you can still catch on YouTube and on the website. But for the first time tonight, we moved onto the Facebook Live platform. I'm Michael McCann and I'll be with you on Mondays at 9 p.m. CET. And then Vinny Sandhu will be with you at 9 p.m. on Thursdays CET. For tonight, though, we've got Fletcher from VOC Rotterdam and Daniel Beswick, the cricket broadcaster, with us to chat news, views, opinions, and a bit of fun about the game. At the current time, of course, please stay home, stay safe, stay indoors, and the world, hopefully, at some point soon will be back to normal. But just to repeat, if you haven't joined us on Instagram before, this isn't designed to be a place for hard-hitting news about coronavirus. This is very much a cricket show and a bit of an escape from daily life at the moment. And to help deliver us that, let's bring in our very first guest on this brand new Facebook Live platform. It's Fletcher, who is eager, ready and waiting to go and has got up at a very early time. Where exactly are you and what is the time there?
Morning, Michael. It's 7 a.m. this morning here in Auckland. Happy to do it though, mate. Always good to have a bit of a yarn about cricket.
Very grateful for the commitment to that cause. And you, of course, are very committed and, well, sometimes we'll give you talented, I'll go with that, player who is at the forefront of the 2019 European Cricket League. And jokes aside, Pierce was a key all-rounder in a side, a VOC Rotterdam side that really swept all before them in the competition. The closest anyone got to beating you was Svanholm in that group match. Looking back on ECL 19, what are your first memories when you think of that tournament?
Just an exciting time, mate. We're all absolutely buzzing to get over there from the start of the summer even previous, when we sort of started hearing rumblings that this thing could be happening. This was 2018. We'd won the National League and it was obviously the 50 over league, and it was something that we discussed when on commentary, but we won the 50 over comp, and at the time, that was the entry criteria to get to this tournament. Whereas RBS, who had won the 2020s, were obviously also keen. But we knew we were going, which was absolutely brilliant. Got there, and just played absolutely magnificently for the 3 days. Had a lot of laughs, made a lot of friends, and definitely an experience I'll never forget.
Is it correct, though? My sources tell me that you guys almost, as we have a look back over the VOC Rotterdam highlights of ECL 19, got stuck in Dubrovnik. What was the story there, Pierce?
Well, not all of us got stuck in Dubrovnik, but yes, obviously Corey Rutgers and Scott Edwards, who both had good tournaments in their own right for differing reasons, took a little bit of a couple of day hiatus in Dubrovnik. So we have a week off in Holland, middle of the season, as you do, just the Dutch way. And they went away and were due to fly in at 10 a.m. on the day we were flying out to Spain. So all jokes aside, their flight was delayed and they ended up getting home as Max, myself, and our manager, David Mullet, were heading out the door. So, it was all a bit of a scramble at the end of the day, but we got there in the end.
And I also have heard rumours from sources that you had a manager who, the phrase "you had one job" comes to mind. A manager in David Mullet who didn't really execute on that one job and also didn't really have a phone to tell any of us from the European Cricket League how the VOC Rotterdam travel plans were going. Is that correct?
I think you might be spot on there, mate. That's a great shot, that one, by the way. Mully decided that going to Tomorrowland and then coming back with a phone that no longer worked due to smashing it on the floor was the best option. And none of us realised this at the time and then thought, oh, well, who's in contact in the managers group on WhatsApp? Tizo, are you on there? No. Mully, have you spoken to anyone about it? No. So for about 48 hours, we had no contact with the European Cricket League. And you never know, our flight could have been changed, moved, something could have happened, and Mully had no idea. So I ended up having to take on that role. But to give Mully his dues, on ground, he was absolutely brilliant.
So once you did get there, what are the main memories that come back when looking at these highlights?
Just the fact that every team had someone that could take the game away from you. I remember we talk about Cluj, and obviously the whole thing around Pavel is brilliant. But a guy like Taranjeet Singh, who, he took 2 poles against us and also got 40 odd. Mads Hendrickson against us from Svanholm. These guys are taking the game away. Armand Nabi made that 100 as well. Obviously, quite lucky he didn't quite get away against us. But, a lot of these guys just put us under pressure at certain spots. And to be fair, I don't think we coped particularly well at points. But with the quality of players we had throughout our side, we were able to deal with it as a group.
What were the particular lessons that you guys learned from a T10 comp with 50-meter boundaries, a very different experience to anything even the more experienced players in your side had maybe been a part of with this brand new situation?
Yeah, I suppose whilst I say we didn't handle the pressure well, we also knew that with 50-meter boundaries that you were always in the game, especially once everyone worked out that chasing was the way to go. Even in that semi-final against Catalonia, we still took our time, and realised that anything could happen. Like 130 is very chaseable. I think we ended up chasing it in about 7.5 overs. Obviously, the final was the final, and the point that I've made to you off air in previous conversations was Findorf had to bowl first. Where they had to put us under pressure to put a score on the board. And Max and Scott had their day, and I think people forget Max's innings there, 74 off 25 balls, just as impressive as Scott's 130 odd off.
Just Scott getting in the strike.
Yeah, exactly. Stole the strike for the last few overs, but it was that was a phenomenal game, and it's not often, and regardless of what people say, when you need 22 and over for 10 overs, let alone any length of time, it's going to be very difficult to chase. So the confidence we had walking out there, bowling in that second half of the innings, was pretty weird. To know that you were going to win a final after the first 10 overs, even though I did end up going for 40 in my 2 overs.
You did your best to keep it a close game, because I know actually that after 3 overs, memory serves me correctly, Findorf were level, if not slightly ahead of where VOC were at that stage. The difficulty for Findorf in that particular calculation was that every single ball seemingly after that went for 4 or 6. You're pictured here with your good mate Corey Rutgers, who had to throw everything in a suitcase and almost got stranded in Dubrovnik. But when he's not doing that, has roles with various franchises and is the VOC head coach. To go back to that very first game, after the chaos at Dubrovnik and the chaos we're getting there and only getting into your hotel rooms at around 2 a.m. sort of time, I understand, you guys had to be up right and early to be playing 9 a.m. start against the French champions Dreux in the competition. You end up bowling first. You took that very first over and took the very first wicket in the European Cricket League. But it so nearly could have been Corey taking that wicket. What was the story behind how you thought that spin was the option, and then you guys very much changed your mind eventually?
No, you're absolutely bang on, man. I see Dan's there, and he's posted something in the comments, and we talk about going to bed at 2 a.m. But for us, it was. I think Dan had about 35 minutes sleep. I think he mentioned to me when we were there at 9 a.m. the next day. It was like, okay, so my 4.5, 5 hours was absolutely brilliant then. So yeah, but it was a great thing from that perspective. But in terms of Corey and I had a bit of a chat about the person that takes this first wicket. They're going to be a pub quiz question in 50 years' time. Who took the inaugural wicket in the European Cricket League? This thing's going to explode, as Dan's doing even now, going to 16 teams in the second season of it when it happens. Yeah. But this was the thing, and we'd always talked about, I think that spin's probably the way to go, keeping it slow, taking the pace off the ball, get away with some rubbish, as we've talked about. So Corey was always lined up to bowl that first over, all the way from Dubrovnik back to Rotterdam Airport, once arriving in Spain to La Manga. We were all sitting there. I was going to bowl somewhere in the middle, use my slow balls and bowl at the end. And then we saw it was a bit dewy, and we saw the ball that we were going to use, and Peter goes, no, Fletch, you take the first over. And I think you had a bit of trepidation in the commentary box about, you've built this whole thing up. Let's hope this first ball's all right.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of the best balls I think I've ever bowled. I can't believe it didn't hit the stumps. And I think it just sort of set everything off on the right track. And then obviously second ball, leading edge, caught by Corey incidentally. And there you had it. The story was sort of all there. Both of us ended up. So Corey can be the bonus point to saying who took the catch, I guess.
Well, it was nice to see him involved in some way. When you told me before at 5-9, even 10-9, it was going to be him taking the first over and spin at all costs almost.
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Yeah, well, that's what we were sort of looking at. We didn't take many spinners. We had Ais Durrani, who played in the Svanholm game. We also had Pete, obviously, Max bowling a little bit of his leggies, which was he bowled really well in those couple of overs, took some crucial wickets, and Corey. So when you have four bowlers that bowled spin, the rest of us are all pretty much seam bowlers. So yeah, it was a spin at all cost sort of thing, with using our seam as sort of death bowling, and then it sort of flipped around a little bit, and we went pretty well seam heavy the whole way through.
We've got a comment in that's been on the screen for a while now from Pepperjin Katzberg. I hope I've got that name right.
Peppy, yeah, Pepine.
Not the easiest one, he says, and he doesn't let us forget that he took the inaugural wicket at the ECL, which is exactly what we've just been discussing. And if you do want to get your comments flying in, then we'll happily get them up on the screen. If you've got any questions that you want to fire out, whether they be using any inside information against Pearce in any way, shape or form. And on that note, I do have to put Pearce up to the fact that he's got a solid contender for our theme of this week. So our theme of this week is cricketing birthdays. What are your memories of playing cricket on your birthday? When has it gone wrong? When has it gone right? Because I know, Pearce, you have a solid contender for the worst cricketing birthday story ever, involving 370-odd runs, a dropped catch, a curry in the roasting sun. I'll let you start our theme of the week with cricketing birthdays by regaling us of this story. A few weeks before the ECL, you head down to play Dosti, I believe I'm saying.
That's the one.
And what happened next, as they say?
Yeah, we played Dosti away. So Dosti, for those that don't know, is just on the outskirts of Amsterdam, and we're obviously in Rotterdam. So it's a bit of a drive. It's an hour and 10. And imagine a field which is 2 football fields either side. With the mat wicket in the middle, which, it's not the nicest looking mat. Some of these clubs do a really good job on sort of really preparing there as well. But the Dosti one was a little bit potentially subpar. But anyway, we get there. We're missing Peter, Scott and Max, who are all playing Zimbabwe in an ODI. So I think they had a fair 2020, I think it was, back at VOC. Which was a fair reason to be missing, but we've headed down there, and the night before, David Mullett and myself decided to go for a beer to celebrate my birthday. Anyway, sort of feeling a little bit dusty on the morning of, but on me trundle down, quite a young side, and we knew we were going to come up against it. Dosti were sort of in a bit of form. Yelter was captain. Which was an inspired choice. He won't mind me saying. And yeah, mate, we lost the toss and we were bowling, and I think we got put around the face for 370. And yeah, it was an absolute shocker. We had a guy called Tawar Kohli who basically bats like Virat, and Sabas was sort of shunted behind the stumps. And he's a talented wicketkeeper, but hadn't been doing much of it in the season. We've nicked the guy out, and unfortunately the catch has gone down, and he's gone to put on another 70 or 80 odd. and you're just sitting there going, like, this is not going to be our day. Then you had doping control come at lunchtime. Now, none of us have any issues with it, but it was all just like, then my name got pulled out of the hat. So obviously you have to wait, and there's obviously 2 people from either side. So that's all at the end of the game. And then in the meantime, this opposition has brought out probably the hottest curry you've ever experienced at a game of cricket. So the good thing was we were batting, so we didn't have to worry about having to run on and off the field in the field. But yeah, and then I think we got bowled out for about 105 or 110 or something. I got about 40 odd, but it was a pretty miserable day. You're having to wait around.
And the score, sorry to interrupt, but the score you said when you walked out was 40 for 8, chasing 371 to win.
Oh, it would have been something like that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it just a day that you just knew was never gonna go well. And especially when it's your birthday, and you're going, this could be a really good day. You know, we could pull an upset. But yeah, there you go. One of those stories. There you go. Cricketing birthdays, eh?
And am I right in thinking as well you drove home on your own?
Yeah, well, Tizo Mormon, obviously assistant manager of our ECL side, was going to a concert in Amsterdam. So I'd brought him up in the car, and he ended up, staying in Amsterdam. So there was only me in the car driving all by myself all the way home. What a way to spend your birthday.
Daniel Weston says a few birthday celebration beers, never just a few. Are you able to confirm what time you did get back in that night before that game?
Oh, look, it would have been a standard 2 a.m, I would say. We don't go too wild pre-game, but, always got to have a pre-game beer. I think that's really important that you still enjoy yourself.
The man who's been mentioned so far, Corey Rutgers, says, how do you make the best toasty? Are you able to elaborate on what this means?
Yeah, so a toasted sandwich and
put the hand closer to the crust?
No, you've always got to lay away. You must lay away. It's what Gordon Ramsay does, so you must lay away. If you go to the Kennel_5 Instagram page, you'll be able to see the video there. It's all on Instagram TV.
Now, we have got a family shout-out. Lillian Fletcher says, your father...
My mother, yes.
...to get that first wicket, Piers Fletcher. Now, at this point, I feel like we've been too generous because we've talked about the fact that you've taken the first ECL wicket extensively in the first 18 minutes or so of this show and having you on. So we've got to bring the ego just back down to earth a little bit with a statistic, which I know you're already aware of. So, dear viewers, I've killed him softly. He's already aware of what's coming here. This is one we've sort of prepared earlier. But Piers Fletcher, you bowled more wides than any other bowler at ECL 19. Can you explain just how that's happened? And do you still feel worthy of collecting a winner's medal despite that statistic?
Look, Michael, sometimes it's a really important place, live on television in 110 countries. It was live on Sky Sport here in New Zealand, Fox Sports in Australia, all around the world. You've got to get that airtime, mate. That's what it's all about. No one's going to know me if I'm standing at backward point for the remaining 8 overs, are they? So stay in front of the camera for as long as possible. It means you had to talk about me.
Comment to a bit of passive aggression towards whoever was fielding at backward point there?
No, because that was pretty much me for the rest of the tournament otherwise. So I don't know who would have been filling in for me. Probably Ashikulla.
Yeah, a bit of advice from Pepin Katzberg. Don't bowl there, sunshine. The one thing I will say in your defence on a more serious note is a lot of the time it was the classic trying to kind of, you're trying to hit that wide Yorker channel or you're trying to cramp up a batsman for room. As the competition evolved, what plans in that sense did you find were more effective than you expected them to be, and what plans did you find didn't work as well as you thought they might?
I think we've talked about this off air in previous conversations, Michael, but, we were really trying to focus on a plan. So we weren't just running in and bowling, We were trying to execute something. So whether it be a wide Yorker, for me, probably a lot of I think I bowled a couple of those or tried. But some of those were also me trying to take wickets and probably be a little bit greedy at points. And that's a typical outswing bowler. Look at me with the Pav. What a guy. yeah, it was interesting, but I think for the most part, we executed our plans more often than not. And whether that meant we bowled wide and then went for a one from the extra delivery, I don't think those extra deliveries generally cost us a hell of a lot for the most part. James Cantor, eh? Yeah, well, looking at James Cantor, he's he was in some good form when we were there as well, and all of the staff at the ECL were brilliant for us, mate. I actually can't hear Michael at the moment, which is quite funny. So it means that I feel like I'm doing this by myself. But I'm looking at some of these comments, and Corey's giving it to me about being in full cricket mode. So is Melly. Well, I'm always in full cricket mode. You've got to be fully prepared at all times. So if Michael wants to rejoin me, because I can't actually hear him, I'll just keep rolling through the chat because there's nothing else for me to do.
Can you hear me, Pierce?
Oh, yeah. Hey, there you are.
Hey, can you hear
you again?
Bit of a technological gremlin. I was going to ask about this photo of Pavel. What's going on here? Because he doesn't look particularly pleased to be seeing you, does he?
Yeah, look, I think I was fanboying pretty hard there, mate.
Was he sick of you?
He would have been.
He just had enough of you by that point. But anyway, yes. Well, you should be billing us for that 2 minutes of hosting you've had to do there as well.
Oh, mate, 100%. Yeah, Dan knows the check. I'm waiting for my check.
Saying that, you've got a bit of a story surrounding gear at ECL 19 as well, which brings us nicely onto our sponsored painter competition. So for those that don't know, every single week, Painter put up a fantastic prize as a quiz, and if you get 6 out of 6, then you can win yourself a pair of spikes. You could do with a pair of spikes, as far as we understand, because you made a serious. Tell us the saga. You gave away your spikes. You lost them. It was all a bit of a drama. What happened?
I don't know if it was a drama. You might be billing it up a little bit, mate. But the Brescia boys obviously arrived late, missed some of their gear. Sort of some things happened, but our good friend John Woodward, who again does a great job for us whilst we were there in Spain, decided that he'd come over and ask us for some shoes to give to the Brescia boys because they had quite large feet. So I ended up giving my painter shoes away, and I got told, all right, and I got told this specifically, that they would replace my painter shoes. I'm yet to see them, Michael. But look, it was just me being the nice Kiwi I am. I wasn't the only one in my team, but I'm definitely taking the limelight for it. Michael just keeps going away whenever he puts something else on the screen. But Mully's putting stuff up there, which is funny. Oh, here we go. Freddie Carson, the legend. Oh, there he is.
Freddie Carson, who, of course, would have been at ECL 19, but decided to make the error of leaving VOC Rotterdam after winning the domestic competitions to get them there. And on that note, we've got to ask, so we would have had double Dutch at ECL 20 this summer because of you guys at VOC being the defending champs and RBS getting the invite as well to represent Holland as the designated Dutch team as such.
Yep.
So for those that don't know, you've previously played for RBS. Tell us a bit about them and some of the threats that they might have brought. And with the Dutch season getting cancelled, we already know that it will be RBS and VOC at ECL 21. So what can we expect from RBS?
Yeah, I've seen that Fred's put it, am I the biggest cricket nuffy in the world? I don't know about that, but I'll go pretty close. And also, yes, Fred does actually regret not being there at ECL 19 last year too. The bloke's a legend as well. But in terms of RBS, great club. I really enjoyed it. Corey and I were there. That was my first season in Holland. Corey had been there for one previous. Really loved playing there. I played in the twos. I was head coach of the twos. We went all right. One's had a really good season. I think they finished 3rd or 4th in the league. In terms of players, I mean, Tobias Vise is the obvious one to go. You wouldn't go past a guy that's played already all around the world in different leagues. Wesley Baresi is a high quality cricketer as well, and they've just got a whole stack of all rounders and guys that have a very athletic side. So I think they'll be very well set for this T10 format come ECL 21.
And you would think logically in a T10 comp, the more rounders the better, surely.
Sorry, say that again, mate. I lost you there.
No, I was just saying you'd think in a T10 competition, the more all-rounders, the better, really.
Well, potentially it gives you options, doesn't it? And as long as you've got guys that can clear the rope, then you're absolutely fine.
And speaking of Dutch cricket, of course, it's all done and dusted for the summer. So how has that impacted you and your isolation setup and your immediate future? Because for those that don't know, you're a coach at Sacred Heart Boys School in New Zealand. How's that sort of the coronavirus situation influenced the life and times of Pierce Fletcher?
The life and times of Pierce Fletcher. It's going to be this sounds like a book title. Yeah. I will put something together. How's it impacted us? Well, obviously we've been impacted like everyone else. We've been in lockdown. Things have just started to be relaxed. We have 4 levels. So we had level 4, which was the full lockdown. We were in level 3 for 2 weeks now. That goes away on Wednesday night, and then we were into level 2, which is a lot of normality, which still means a lot of things are closed, but we'll be sort of getting back to close to normal. In terms of what it's done for me, I'm still head coach at the school and doing stuff. So we've been teaching cricket on Zoom and cricket online through email and stuff like that. But I'm really looking forward to.
I have to interrupt you by asking that.
Well, yeah.
What do you do?
I suppose we're quite lucky in some respects, and in other respects we're not. But we've had our season, so we're doing a lot of reflection on it, and just sort of relaxing, and just trying to sort of understand how we went during the season. What did we do well? What can we learn heading into the, I suppose, pre-season, even though it's only going to be May. I know boys are going to be keen to have a bit of a hit come next week. So we'll see what happens.
Now, we have got a viewer question. Fred Clarson says, talk us through the T20 against Hermes in 2018 when you melted, I assume that doesn't mean literally, and decided to finish the game off bowling the last over using your short run-up. Just tells off the end of the score.
Yeah, it's a good question, Fred. I really appreciate it. Well, to give a bit of backstory to this, this was one of the weirdest games of cricket. We had, I think, 10 players, maybe 9. Corey was injured, and so too was Max. Max had done a hamstring. He won't mind me saying this now because we've moved on from that. And Corey had broken a finger, I think, or something like that. We had a 13-year-old filling in as well. I think we had 9 playing against Hermes, who had 2 very good overseas players. Anyway, long story short, we sort of get to the last over. I've bowled a brilliant 5 balls and then sort of just decided to finish it off 1 step or 2 steps. Binned one down the leg side, wide, going back to our wide theme, and then binned one outside off stump wide. And so then they ended up needing 6 off the last ball. And I've got Pete and Fred just shouting at me, go back to your full run-up and do it properly. Bowled it, got hit for 1, we win the game. But yeah, absolutely melted. And like you said, it wasn't physically, but it almost felt like it for a second.
It did nearly turn into something of a disaster. We've got another question, which I think refers to some of the post-ECL celebrations. Corey Rutgers referring to James Cantor, the key ECL staff member we mentioned early on, he's a big part of the ECL team, saying, was it you or James Cantor on fire more on the last night in La Manga? Whilst keeping it clean, I understand, and I was part of some of it, there was some pretty raucous celebrations, and thankfully the trophy, which is absolutely magnificent, 10 kilos, has got gold, silver, all sorts on it, and looks magnificent, got out unscathed, which is the good news.
Yeah, no, James Cantor was definitely on far more fire than me. I do remember helping him into the taxi on the way home. But it was a great night, and we had a lot of the ECL staff there. We had a lot of the opposition teams there, and it was just everyone celebrating what a great success it was.
And looking forward to ECL 21 as and when it does come to happen. 16 teams, the Irish joining, the Scots joining, the English joining, RBS in there as well. What were you most looking forward to about that challenge and when it eventually comes round?
I think it's no secret, mate, that the Irish, the Scots, and the English joining really does give it that extra little bit of higher quality teams in terms of clubs that have been around for a long time, have got a higher level of standard throughout. But in terms of all these other clubs, we've seen from the original edition, in terms of guys from the St. Petersburg team in Russia, in terms of Lalit and some of that, all these teams are going to be dangerous in their own capacity. And it's going to be great to see so many teams on the big stage, almost.
We've got some good news for you, Pierce. Here at the European Cricket League, the Dream 11 European Cricket Series and the European Cricket Network, we like to make the dreams of our players come true. We like to inspire people all around the world to play the game and love playing it. And your complaints, your disgust at your shoe situation has been heard at the very top of the hierarchy of our organisation. And a man who was the executive broadcasting director at FIFA for 5 years, no less, working right next to Sepp Blatter, Roger Finer, has seen what you had to say and said, Pierce, what is your shoe size? We will replace it. So it looks like you've got a good news story after all. And
yeah, look, it was worth it. It was worth bringing up.
Yes, I should mention to our viewers that Pierce has sacrificed all of his time and got up at 7 a.m. just because he's that desperate to get his stash back of that pair of shoes, which
100%
is a real commitment, because you were telling me earlier, and it's a brand you can't name for commercial reasons because it's not Painter, but you had a tatty old mess of a pair of spikes that you were actually happier with than the sponsors ones when you got there in La Manga.
Yeah, my feet are quite delicate things, so I knew that these shoes worked, and I wasn't sure about the new spikes for some blisters during a 3-day tournament. So I decided to hold off, use the old ones, and I think they're probably still somewhere near La Manga. So they definitely didn't come home with me to New Zealand, let alone Rotterdam.
Now, one last question looking back on ECL 19 covers a game where you so nearly got toppled. I mean, you guys were already through, but you played Svanholm. You both won 2 out of 2. You were both into the quarterfinals. A lot of people had you two as the two main favourites for the tournament. Of course, Svanholm went on to lose to Findorf in the final. But at the back end of day 2, and I know it's the only game ECL founder Daniel Weston, because he's such a busy guy, has even found the time to go back and watch properly. He didn't watch any of it at the time because he was too busy doing everything that needs to be done. But what a game to have picked to have watched. Day 2, evening, sunshine, La Manga, 2 high-quality teams going at it. We'll have a look back at some of the highlights now, but what comes to your mind when you see this footage of this match in particular?
Yeah, mate, look, absolutely stunning game, and I think it was the point I was putting it up on my Instagram at the time, and I think Dan just sort of came across it, and it was just awesome that he got the opportunity to watch that game. It, like you say, high-quality fixture. Against a really good team. Both sides, tried their best to win. We gave a few guys an opportunity, and it worked for some capacity. But the way that Svanholm went about their business was absolutely brilliant. And like I say, it just put us under pressure the whole way through. And if you look, we're 67 after those first 6 overs, and we ended up on 130. We had a really big last 4 overs. And obviously, Corey will want me to say that he had a bit. Oh, look at that shot. Oh, there's another 6. Oh, look at that one.
There's Fletcher commentating on himself.
But yeah, no, Corey's last over, and it was a point Peter made at the time, was sort of just got us over that little barrier, that little 130 barrier. And sort of gave us the opportunity to sort of keep it in our favour throughout. Even though Mads did get off to a start, we still had runs in the bank when he eventually did fall.
Well, it's interesting you use the phrase "in your favour" because Mads Henriksson was going at about 3 a ball. There must have been some nerves then.
Oh, no doubt. There's definitely nerves. Blokes coming out and absolutely whacking them all around the park. So, you know, you can't. Sometimes you can't do anything about that. Again, we didn't execute as best as we could on some of those occasions. Probably bowled a little bit too straight for him, but at the same time, mate, you know, we live and we learn, and it was a really good opportunity. We had some confidence going into the final, knowing that we could bat first, set a score, and defend it.
50-metre boundaries, bit of a bowler's graveyard. Not meaning to out you, but when I asked before this what one thing you might recommend as a change to ECL founder Daniel Weston, you said maybe just a bit longer on the square boundaries. Is that still something you'd stand by?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think the 50-metre boundaries were great. I think it brought the scores up, which I think was really important. You know, we wanted to see 100 play 100, but at the same time, bowlers did find it quite difficult at the same time. I think, especially for the seamers, to be able to have maybe 5 metres further on the square boundaries, just gives guys the opportunity to bowl slowies into the pitch, and potentially they don't all go for 6. I mean, even one of those 6s that I've somehow dragged through the leg side is just lobbed over. So it's one of those things, mate. But yeah, at the same time, I can deal with it. I'll play on 50-metre boundaries if we have any sort of experience like that again next year.
And Corey Rutgers, as we mentioned, I do have to mention it because it's unignorable, ending the innings with 666 and 29 off 7 balls, which looking back was possibly the difference. The man himself couldn't resist chipping in. Of course, he scored at just over 4 a ball that day, suggesting that he was somehow going slowly by only scoring at 3 a ball, Mads Henriksson. But jokes aside, this was quite an assault, which just ended there 53 off 20. I believe I just caught sight of on that scoreboard. And then you guys pulled it back. Was there anything in particular you changed in those death overs to get things back in your favour?
No, look, I think it's very difficult to start in this format. I think, as much as you want to just go and whack it, it's not always that easy. But, yeah, in terms of the fixture, mate, what a game. What an advertisement for European cricket and how it was meant to be played.
There's one that will live long in the memory, and hopefully when we get to ECL 21 with a week-long tournament rather than 3 days and double the number of teams, we'll see only more contests like that. We've had a couple of questions worried about your diet. David Mullet says, Lillian, how many toasted sandwiches is young Pierce having a week? And Corey Rutgers saying, Lillian, what has Pierce started to cook? I've only seen tosties or chicken wings. Care to comment?
In terms of the toasty consumption, it's at an all-time low at the moment. We're sort of in that intervening period between summer and winter, so I'm pulling back from it. But 4 were consumed yesterday. In terms of the chicken wings, it's still obviously it's high on the priority list. But in terms of other things, I'm doing a lot on the barbecue at the moment. Still trying to make the most of the last few days of summer. Or at least the summery weather, even though we are in mid-May now. But yes, I'll put something up on Instagram for Corey to show him more about my cooking repertoire. And
what's the plug if you just want to get it in to try and get yourself a few more followers for such eventuality?
PJ_Fletch if you want to go to my Instagram or Twitter. But obviously, the Kennel_5 on Instagram is the account that's going to have the Tosty video, which Corey alluded to earlier on, which might be handy for some of those that are sort of novice Tosty makers and toasted sandwich makers.
There we go. Pierce Fletcher giving out tasted sandwich advice, which it's not where I thought this interview would go, but it's where we've gone. On the note of different teams entering the ECL, you're actually a bit better placed than most to talk about what they might bring because you've played with Dis, and actually played against Swardston in the Norfolk Leagues and Suffolk Leagues for them. You've played up in Scotland as well. Just tell us about what the experiences have been like as a young man going to different places and spending a season playing cricket, and what you learn about life as well.
Yeah, well, Scotland, I went and played at Pollock CC in the middle of Glasgow. That was my first year. The photo that you've got there is of Dis. That was when I was 19, turning 20. So, yeah, those are 2 great years. That side there, we struggled along at Dis that season. But great experience living in East Anglia. Had some really quality players. I remember Dave Tucker, you'll see sitting at the front there, bigger chap. The guy could just whack it. But yeah, just learning a lot from different guys. And, this is a small town as such, 10,000 people. This is the Scotland Over 40s club, and Corey will probably pipe up saying that I fit into this. I was 19. This is the day before I flew home. In this photo here, and this is actually playing at Balmoral Castle, up there in Scotland, where the Queen was in residence at the time. So we were actually playing on the Queen's grounds against Creathy Cottage, which was a hell of an experience. But these, in terms of the ECL sides, the teams that will play Forfarshire, high quality outfit, and have been up there in Scotland for years. And Swardston have been a quality side in England for multiple years too. And I think that's the sort of thing is when clubs get a good side, they start to put consistent performances together over a long period. So, same thing with us in VOC. We've now gone and won 3 trophies in the last few years. So that's really important. So you sort of see that you can get that level of consistent performance over a few years.
Have you got any final message as we move on to our second guest, Daniel Beswick? Have you got any last message for the European cricket community about everything that's going on at the moment, or the game, or your experience of coaching?
Oh yeah, mate. Look, I think it was a point that was raised by you and myself earlier on about just mental health and mental well-being. I think it's a really big thing. Obviously, here at our school with 1,300 boys and everyone being cooked up, it's not an easy time to deal with. The stress of learning school online. They've never had to do that. To then be forced to do it for 7 weeks is not particularly easy. So, from that perspective, just, if you are having a tough time, just reach out to someone that you trust or whatever it is. And if not, make sure you seek the right advice. But yeah, just make sure that you're staying safe, and communicating with people if you are having a tough time.
Do you feel like one tiny silver lining of what has been obviously an awful worldwide crisis that no one will be forgetting anytime soon could be that it accelerates people to talk more, and mental health to become even more open as a topic because of what everyone's experienced in lockdown?
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think it's hugely important, and I think like you say, it has fast forwarded things, and it has become far more accepted for people to talk about people having issues. So, I think if you are having a tough time, just make sure you find the right person to speak to, and otherwise follow the right channels. In terms of every country has got something in place of that nature. So just don't coop it all up, and just try and let it out. Try and help yourself.
We've got one last question, which has just come in to me from an old work colleague, Gareth Messenger, who says, you can go on a desert island and be locked down, and you can take 3 items. What are you taking and why? Which is a great question.
You've absolutely put me on the spot here. So what would I take and why? Was it?
Say?
Oh, mate, I'm a little bit taken back. I need my beer. I definitely need some beer. So I don't know how we go about it. Whether I need the crops for that. Okay. So whether I need some hops and all that sort of stuff, but an endless supply of beer would be definitely required.
Okay.
A toasted sandwich maker and my toasted goods, and I could live happily by myself.
When you say toasted goods, I'm not sure that technically counts as one item. What are toasted goods? Is that multiple items? But
Yeah, they're all coming in a bag, so I'm counting that bag as one item.
Oh, well, that's the same tactic.
I'm going to bend the rules.
I was going to say that's the same tactic people use in airports, of course, where they want to do everything that they can possibly do to get around the regulations. Fred Carson's chipped in again, saying "Righto hero," which you've obviously paid him for that compliment. That's far too nice to come from a teammate normally. Piers Fletcher, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time and your good humour, and also hearing about your experiences of playing cricket in different parts of the world. And as and when everything changes again, hopefully at ECL 21, you'll be back and bowling straighter and better than ever.
Yeah, well, let's hope, Michael.
Cheers, Piers. Thanks very much.
Thanks, mate. No problem. Thanks for your time. Cheers, pal. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Piers. Thank you very much. So Piers Fletcher getting up bright and early in New Zealand. And now we cross from guest number 1 to guest number 2. Another man who's made even more of a sacrifice in terms of sleep. It is the cricket writer, broadcaster, journalist. He didn't really give me a speech or script to introduce him, but a man who does a little bit of everything in the cricket media world and plays as a decent opening batsman as well. Daniel Beswick, I would say good afternoon, good evening, which is where we are in Europe. But if Piers had it bad with being up at 7 a.m., you've got it even worse because it's 3 a.m. where you are?
No, we're coming close to 6 a.m. Got up at 4:30, ready for the show, and I'm sure you'll lead with it at some point. But I think I might get it out of the way and steal your thunder here. But I was 24 hours early for our chat yesterday, just trying to get into the right sleeping pattern. But as I say, if you stay ready, you never have to get ready, Michael.
Yes, deciding that. Oh my days. Sorry, I think one of my flatmates has just burnt something in the kitchen, which is just perfect timing. Like you go on your like house WhatsApp group just before I go on air from our home studio setup that we've got here, and you say, "Oh, I'm on air for the next hour, so if you can just try and keep it down." But clearly someone's had some kind of eventuality.
The plights of home studio, Michael.
Exactly. Yes. You work all you can on your lighting and everything else, and you know that better than most as a fellow sort of cricket presenter and broadcaster and on-air person, broadly speaking. But anyway, so moving on from that, I mean, it is almost as if, Daniel Beswick, you've timed that fire alarm strategically with others I did to distract from what I was about to razz you with, which in front of the world's audience, which is that Dan was so keen to be on our show that it popped up on my Instagram story, a picture of him there at his desk, eager, perfect setup, all ready to go. Can't wait to be on the European Cricket Studio, all the tags in. And I had told him, don't get me wrong, we'd try and be organised here. We tell our guests what time the show is. And I had to say to Dan, it's great that you're ready, but you don't need to sit in the green room for 23 and a half hours. Like we're not that unreasonable, but no, we love the enthusiasm and we're grateful for the commitment and the sacrifice of your sleep clock to be here, Dan.
Lost track of the days, Michael. That's my only explanation on things. When you've got nothing, to fill the calendar with, one day just rolls into the next.
Yeah, I mean, and you check in the time zone. I'm almost surprised that you and Piers both didn't suffer the same eventuality. Clearly, he, unlike you, was able to work things out. But moving on to, you're someone that covers associate cricket a hell of a lot. You're heavily involved, if not one of the key people. I don't know what your exact job title is, but is one of the key people, the head honchos at the Emerging Cricket Project, which has been very closely linked with the European Cricket Project that's going on. You were going to be in La Manga for ECL 20. So what would you say in terms of just being our sort of roving reporter guy? We were talking about before the Czech Republic. There've been the Vanuatu situation, which has gone crazy. I'm sure you, more than anyone else, will be pleased to see that this crisis, again, we're talking tiny positives in a broader world. Obviously, make that very clear before it gets misinterpreted. But it's shone a light on places and cricketing projects that normally wouldn't get that.
Well, Vanuatu got plenty of attention about 2 weekends ago, where they had over 450,000 streamers to their live broadcast of cricket. It was the first time they'd ever broadcast cricket in the country with the national service as well as Vanuatu cricket in a joint project. It was essentially a women's T20 finals day that linked up actually quite well with their fixture list and the rest of their tournament. They were able to get that out. They were basically COVID free. They had a T10 intra-squad friendly match between members of the men's national team as a bit of an opening ceremony, a bit of a prologue. Then they had a T20 finals day in Vanuatu. And yeah, as I said, 500,000 viewers, according to Vanuatu CEO Shane Dietz, who played some domestic cricket for South Australia in the late 90s to mid 2000s. He was immensely proud of that, as he should be. It was a fantastic stream up and running, and it shows, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get these things up and going and in the right direction. Multi-camera stream, great cricket. It was on at a good time for just about everyone. And yeah, to move it a little bit closer to you guys in Europe, the Czech Republic are trying to roll out League T20 cricket, I think from June 20, and trying to get it up. I understand that they're a little bit better in terms of coping with all the COVID struggles in that European area. But we've also seen cricket in Taiwan, who aren't Taiwan, or at least Chinese Taipei, aren't an ICC member as yet, but they are a member of the Asian Cricket Council. They've had a T10 tournament over the last few weekends, which has been available via stream as well. And yeah, just hearing of stories of games slowly returning back to normality all around the world, and hopefully Europe is the next region, or one of the regions, where we do see a little bit more cricket.
And on a wider level, has this, in an odd way, and we were speaking about this the other day, because a lot of these associate countries don't have the fixed big costs to honour, associate countries and your non-top ranking cricket countries are not really getting as hard hit in the pocket as the Australia, India, England kind of situations we're seeing.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting situation. And first, it's probably a good opportunity to acknowledge the struggles that might be felt in, say, the higher end of the associate world and the lower full members. So teams like the Netherlands, who had the ODI Super League lined up and have had those fixtures at this point postponed. It's a little bit disappointing there. I know, hearing from Ryan Campbell and talking about they wanted to sell the TV rights for that ODI Super League, and now with no cricket, they unfortunately haven't been able to do that. I know that a couple of the high-end associate countries have the central contract system, which does make it a little bit more difficult to fund in this situation. But in terms of the 90-plus associate members of the ICC, this situation is not really new to them. They've always been great improvisers. They rely on quarterly funding from the ICC. Their funding's based on sort of a scorecard. How would I put this? There's a scorecard scenario where, yeah, their performance on the field helps, but also the amount of registered cricketers in their respective countries, the amount of turf wickets actually plays a part in how much funding they receive. So for a lot of these countries, they'll still receive the same ICC funding, maybe a little bit less. But because they have no central contract system, there's no overhead costs for a lot of their issues. They actually find themselves financially okay. And from a cricketing point of view, and I know you guys before discussed, mental health in sport and how a lot of this will affect players' mental health, and people around the world will be affected in terms of mental health with something like this. I think cricketers are actually quite well equipped, not only ingrained in the culture of cricket, but also as associate cricketers. A lot of the time they're working sort of tournament to tournament, getting match fees in that regard. They're staying in hotels often by themselves, unable to go outside because they're either on tour ready to play or it's not safe to do so, wherever they may go. So I think emerging cricketers and cricketers in general actually probably a bit better equipped than most in this particular situation. Of course, it's not ideal for anybody, but I think that they're probably a little bit better off than most.
And speaking of adopting to circumstances and success stories, what are the emotions that come back when you see that photo? Probably one of the last major sporting events that got in just before lockdown hit. And although Australia, unsurprisingly, won the tournament, it was Thailand who were the big story.
Yeah, look, I mean, if Thailand weren't everyone's second team at that competition after their own, then
They haven't got a heart.
I'd be very, very, very surprised. That was an excellent story. To take it back a little bit before the actual tournament, a lot of these girls had been a part of the Thailand project for about a decade, closer to a dozen years. A lot of them were converted softballers, and they were all born and raised in Thailand, which makes this story even more special. And they won 17 T20 internationals in a row, which is still, I think, a world record. And when the qualifier came about in Scotland, I think it was, there were people legitimately thinking it would be more of a surprise if Thailand didn't qualify for the tournament than if they did. So it was an incredible performance by them to qualify, and such a crazy story, in 10 years to go from essentially no cricket to being in the World Cup. And yeah, we followed around Thailand in the tournament. The gentleman in the middle of that photo, Nishad Rega, who's actually one of our emerging cricket contributors, he was actually appointed media manager of the Thailand team, which is a great achievement for him, great for his career and his career path. He's also a Thailand men's international as well. We followed them around the country, in Perth, in Sydney. Actually did a day trip to Canberra, which is about a 3.5-4 hour drive from here, to watch them in action take on England. And they had England 2 for not many. And, who would have thought, 10 years ago that Thailand would have England? I think they were 2 for 7. And in a little bit of trouble. And there was a real gasp. There was a very heavy English contingency in that media centre at that particular time. And they were just taken aback by what had happened. England went on to post a big total and win rather convincingly. But there were it was panic stations there for a little bit. And then we moved to the Sydney Showground and watched them play Pakistan in the final group game. Thailand batted first and made 150. And then the rain came down, and unfortunately that game was called off due to the rain. But I don't think Pakistan would have got there. I think it would have been one of the highest ever chases at a T20 World Cup, and definitely for Pakistan. So, yeah, they were cruelly denied, I think, victory by the Sydney weather, which can be temperamental at times. But overall, the Thai campaign was so excellent for us as emerging cricket fans to see that story, and a good message to perhaps some of the power brokers in international cricket, and realizing, if you give these players an opportunity, as does the ECL from a European point of view, if you give them the opportunity, then the excellent, there's a great chance that you can succeed and show off your cricket on the world stage.
And this is a shot of you in action next to your very close and good colleague Tim Cutler in Namibia last year with the associate men's game. What more do you think can be done to encourage and grow things? And I know the most obvious answer is not a 10-team World Cup, but beyond that, as someone who's got a real nuance and specialism in this field, what's not happening that can be done to accelerate development and grow the game?
Yeah, the 10-team World Cup debacle is obviously the main point of focus. But to look at it a little bit further back, I think the ICC have made some positive changes moving forward in terms of international associate cricket. The first thing to bring up is the acknowledgement of T20 international status for every single ICC member. So you can be from, St. Helena or Botswana to Bermuda to Argentina, and if you're playing a T20 international with another team in your area, those records count, across the board in terms of statistics and world records and stuff like that. And I think that's quite an important thing, to be able to show that your country is in those record books for potential people trying to get into the sport, whether they be children or just casual fans. To bring it back maybe to 50 over cricket, which I still think is a pretty important vehicle for international cricket. They've rolled out a new multi-tiered league system after the ODI Super League, which of course one of the ECL founders, the Netherlands, will hopefully be playing in. There's also the Cricket World Cup League 2, which Scotland feature in as well. And it is essentially the next 7 best teams, ODI status teams outside of that 13. So ODI status now goes down to 20 countries. They play 36 one-day internationals over the space of 2.5 to 3 years. So they receive, a little bit more ICC funding a little bit more match practice against each other, and it's a pathway to the 2023 World Cup, which is at this stage, barring a miracle, still only going to be 10 teams. And then under that, you have the Challenge League, which is, I believe it's 2 teams of 6 or 7. 2 groups of 6 or 7 in the rung below that, and the winners of that still find themselves alive in 2023 World Cup qualifying as well. So there have been measures put in place which do enable a little bit more progress on that front. It's just that it comes to a bit of a logjam when it comes back to, say, a World Cup from the 50 over point of view, where there is only 10 teams. T20 World Cup, 16 teams, in arguably a better format to look at it from the outside. So there are changes being put in place, and the global development team actually deserve quite a bit of praise for the work that they do. But unfortunately, it looks as if the powers that be in the very, very top echelons of world cricket are kind of preventing, at least on the 50 over front, that a World Cup of 10 teams seems to be the way forward for them. But hopefully, with a little bit more exposure and some continued great performances by a lot of associate members, we'll see perhaps an increase in the teams at that particular World Cup.
Now, we discussed earlier changing tack to the European Cricket League banding. And whilst Piers Fletcher has had his experience of playing abroad, so have you. You've been an overseas player for a club in Wales. What was that experience like for an Aussie to go to not New South Wales, but
yeah, Wales, yeah. So look, it was an incredible experience, and one that I'll always remember. And hearing stories from Piers just before about playing in different parts of the world, it's just a great rite of passage for any young sports person, let alone cricketer. It's kind of the rite of passage for a lot of the guys in the Southern Hemisphere who find themselves at a loose end in the winter months. I'd finished my uni degree, so I thought, while I can't find a job, I'll go and play in the North Wales League, and was approached by Bethesda Cricket Club. And I like that the logo there, conveniently masquerades the very happy, chummy face on the right-hand side of that picture. But yeah, pictured there with me is Carwyn Lloyd-Williams, who actually represents or has represented a Welsh team, not an international team per se, but he's played at Lords, excellent cricketer. I think we had an average opening partnership of something in the mid-80s, so very, very, very good opening partnership. And he actually came out to Australia a little bit early, and we caught up and was hopefully going to potentially visit them again after ECL 20. Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition. But I think the important thing is, I remember just after I kind of signed, the town, Bethesda in North Wales, was regarded, I think there was a BBC story that regarded Bethesda as the most depressing place in the UK. And I remember going there and just thinking, this is great. I don't understand what all the fuss was about. I thought it was the most exciting time of my life. I met some amazing people. It was a great town. And yeah, I stuck out like a sore thumb as the only foreigner in the village with a big Australian jacket on, walking around in 13-degree weather, thinking it was the coldest thing in the world. But yeah, enjoyed it immensely, and still talk to those guys, just about every week, catching up, and especially in this situation too, just making sure that everyone's keeping well, and we're all sort of in this fight against COVID, all trying to be at least in a united front. And yeah, talking to those guys in a different time zone, and yeah, it was fantastic to be a part of that.
And while we're speaking of traveling, you've got quite an affinity to Nepal in particular, it's fair to say. The place has captured your heart.
Yeah, so our cricket club, Narara, Wyoming, on the central coast of New South Wales, we have a tour to Nepal every 2 years. We've gone, I think, 2014, 2016. The guys went in 2018. I wasn't able to make that one. We were set to go potentially this year as well. And of course, don't need to tell anyone what's happened over the last 6 months to tell you what happened there. But yeah, it's a great part of the world, and just a place which reignited my love of cricket in a way. Seeing those guys play in 35-degree heat, in sandstorms. We got a game called off because there was a desert from 50 kilometers up the road spitting sand across the ground, and we were called off. But these guys were just keen to play. Rain, hail or shine, they were keen, on their toes in the field, the most eager, excited cricketers I've ever played against. And it just reignited that that energy of cricket, that fire of cricket in me, and probably helped fuel the passion that we have in emerging cricket, and even, to following stuff like the European Cricket League as well. The wickets, all raging turners. Didn't have to wear a helmet, not a lot of bounce around, but yeah, plenty of turn, and found it difficult, but really enjoyed the experience, flourished, and just enjoyed a different culture and different people, but this unified understanding and love of cricket, which was, the main part. And yeah, we all enjoyed it immensely.
And it does give you a very different experience. It's the classic, it's a lot of cliches you hear a lot of players use, but it's growing as a person and everything like that. But we spoke earlier on about Pierce Fletcher having cricketing memory on his birthday. Now, this wasn't on your birthday, but when I asked you to send me some images that summed up your cricket journey, it was one of the first. You didn't do what the great cricketer said was the best thing ever, of scoring but losing the game, so that you're the only person that can say, I did my job. You did win the game, and it was your first adult 100. How did it feel, and what was the context of the knock?
Yeah, embargo was lifted a little bit. I scored, a couple of tons in junior cricket and in school cricket. But yeah, I think for everyone, in their sort of cricketing life, that the step from junior cricket to senior cricket is a very, very big jump. And yeah, just this particular day, we play at a ground where historically the bowlers have a lot more of the fun. But yeah, just on this particular day, things worked out. I think it was actually a 2-day game. We bowled the team out for something in the 140s. And then at the end of day one, I think I was on about 60 odd and had the slowest week ever. I think I was still at school at that point, studying for my HSC. And it was the slowest week, just thinking about, I need 30 more tomorrow, next week. I'm that nervous, I haven't got a senior 100. Just thought about it all week. It was the slowest week of my life, slower than, it might have rained the next 5 days, and it wouldn't have mattered for me because it was just that slow. And then got out on that next Saturday and hit the ball around a little bit more, and got to the 3 figures, and just the sheer relief. I know someone's got it on a camera phone from a few years back, so the quality's not great, but watching that sometimes when it pops back up, it's great, great to watch, and just to see like the fist pumps and the jumps, and actually being there with one of my best mates out in the middle with me, who I'd played cricket with ever since I was about 7 or 8, who's one of my best friends still to this day. So to be able to share it with him as well was great. But yeah, to talk about, say, birthdays, I've actually been probably a little bit lucky because my birthday falls in the winter, in the summer months, in the winter months here in Australia. I don't have to worry about making a duck on my birthday, although I think I played on the 12th. So actually on this day 4 years ago, my birthday's tomorrow, without trying to, to beg people to wish me happy birthday or anything like that. But I played on the 12th of May, one time, and actually made a duck. So I think I'm low-key relieved that my birthday's in an autumn month where I don't actually play a lot of cricket. So I don't ever have to get it ruined, which is great.
Yeah, maybe we need to get you over for a season in another part of the world. Might give you some cricketing birthday stories. Good or bad. And on the theme of travelling, Shizhin Ku says, hi, greetings from Qatar. It's ironic I have failed miserably to pronounce the country that I have only recently come back from having the pleasure of working in for 18 months or so. So there you go. That's one for the irony books. We got to move on as well and look back from a journalistic point of view that you provide on the programme to what it was like to be. You were set to be involved in ECL 20 as part of the media team, but you weren't at ECL 19. You were watching on very much from a distance. And the tournament seemed to really take hold in Australia in particular. There was the Fox Sports Pavel Florian situation, shall we say, which was expertly handled by Mark Lovell on the ECL Twitter to turn a very critical post into something that really changed the mood of things. How was the tournament received in Australia, and what was your experience of the way people reacted to it?
Yeah, I love that you brought up that particular story, because in a roundabout way, it ended up being one of the best things about the league. It was proof to people that, it doesn't matter if you're 3 years old, if you're 30 years old, the love of picking up a bat and smacking it to the boundary or taking a wicket or, bowling a ball is a universal joy, no matter where you're from. And to turn it around and for people to realize, just how wide stretching cricket is around the world, and Pavel is the embodiment of all that. It was a great story, and it's something that will live on forever in ECL history. But to bring it back to your question, I thought it was perfect. It started in the mid-afternoon here in Australia in particular. We had a lot of viewers watching it across Australia. I think it was played out between about 4 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. And for a night owl like me, it was the perfect time to watch cricket. And Daniel Weston's made it more than clear. He wants cricket to be the bat and ball summer sport across Europe and across the world, where you get 90-minute games, the equivalent of a football match, with a bat and ball, 10 overs aside. We saw, as Piers put it before, 13 and over run rates. It was an exhibition of cricket with bat and ball. You can have a good bowling performance even when your team concedes 130 in the field. And Weston and you guys proved that look, you can see the ball swinging around in the first couple of overs, but, if you see guys like Edwards and O'Dowd and Fletcher and Rutgers go about their business, making 200 in 10 overs, what's not to love about that? The idea of hitting the ball hard and taking wickets is a universal joy, not just for the privileged few, but for the world. So yeah, the European Cricket League was fantastic. It was 3 days of jam-packed action. We saw plenty of catches, as I'm just looking through the highlights now and indulging in that. But to move it to, say, a week or 8 days with a 16-team tournament, I think is only beneficial for what the tournament wants to bring it and the movement it's trying to make in the world of cricket.
It was certainly something a bit different to what people were used to seeing in the cricketing calendar until it emerged. Did it surprise you just how well it seemed to do in Australia?
Yeah, perhaps a little bit, but I know, from an Australian background, we are just desperate for sport, no matter, what the sport is or what night it falls on. I actually think it was probably advantageous to have it on in the middle of a week, because there wasn't any other competition from, say, our rugby league or AFL codes or rugby union or anything like that. And I don't think there was much actual international cricket on that particular week as well. So the timing was perfect, and it was just, again, a perfect storm of everything culminating and everyone enjoying this tournament, of just people wanting to hit the ball big and take wickets. It was perfect. And I think it just I think it related to a lot of people here in Australia as cricket lovers and people who want to get involved in the sport, because who doesn't love seeing action on a weeknight, over dinner or maybe a beer in hand or something like that. Yeah, it was perfect for us. And I know, looking towards maybe the subcontinent where the time zone was a little bit similar, afternoon into evening, it worked perfectly for them as well. And the Europeans all being on summertime at that point, I'm sure they loved it just as much as we did.
Now, you can fire in your questions for Dan. If you want to get them in, now's your time, because we're going to lose him probably in a few minutes or so. But Shijin Ku from Qatar has done exactly that. Now, I know you've worked with Ricky Ponting at Fox Sports. You're being put on the spot here. Ponting or Smith, which one is your favourite Australian batsman and why?
No, I haven't actually had the chance to work with Ponting because he's at the other telecast network. But from all reports, he's an excellent person to work with. You have put me on the spot there. That's like picking your favourite kid, isn't it? You know what? I still will say Ponting for the reason that because Smith is largely unfinished in terms of his career. I think there's still a redemption story for him to come, even after that amazing Ashes that we saw play out. That I'm sure, Michael, you enjoyed that Ashes series as much as I did. But no, to look at...
It's a close one, and the best series are always the close ones.
That's true. That's true. But for Ponting, for me, I think it would have been very difficult to pick up where Steve Waugh left off in that amazing team. And a lot of people could say, Mickey Mouse could captain that team. There's so many amazing cricketers that it doesn't really matter what you do from a leadership point of view to help move that team forward or to continue winning games. But I remember when Ponting was appointed and being a little bit surprised as he was the heir apparent, but just took it in his stride. and looking at a lot of the innings, looking back and actually having a little bit more time now to look back at some of the knocks that Ponting played. So quick on the pull shot. The guy's got a front foot pull shot. Who else in the world can say they have one? Maybe Rohit Sharma, maybe a couple of others. So for me, it's probably still Ponting. He had an unbelievable record in that particular time that he played in. And Smith, I think, his story is unfinished. I think he'll probably go out as probably just a little bit above Ponting in the stakes here. But yeah, I've got to say maybe, a little bit biased given that was when I grew up into cricket and Ponting was a real hero. Then yeah, that's probably why I'm going with Ponting. But I think Smith has more than an opportunity to eclipse just about everyone. The next one being Bradman, which, I'm sure is probably impossible to reach. That gap is impossible to bridge. But, to go at, say, 65, 70 as a test average, yeah, very, very few people can say at any point in their career that they've averaged that in test cricket. So it'll probably be Smith at the end. That's my answer. But, yeah, I'll stick with Ponting.
You've done a great politician's job of answering the question whilst getting splinters from sitting on the fence at the
yes.
exact same time, which is understandable because it's not an easy question. It's a great question from Shijinku, and viewers, please do fire them in, whatever you've got, because it's great fun for me as the host because I can just put you guys, the guests, on the spot, but in the best way possible. Dan, we're gonna have to lose you there, but before you go, any particular last sort of comments or thoughts for the European cricket community or on everything that's going on right now, or to people across the world? Here's your platform.
Well, I think expanding the tournament next year it would have been this year, of course, but next year to 16 teams, giving VOC a chance to defend their title is great, but also having another, Dutch champion in HBS as well is great. Moving it to having Scotland, Ireland, and an English club as well, I think will build the overall quality. And then looking to Scandinavia, teams like Skanderborg and Lund, I think will be able to showcase their skills. A couple of good returning teams next year. I know that Dreher, I think, coming back amongst a couple of others. But yeah, look, it's just another opportunity for European cricket to really show its potential. I think that it's the next continent to really explode in terms of cricket quality, and everything's there. All the ingredients for success are there. To look at the actual tournament itself, to reward domestic teams around Europe with a continental opportunity, I think is one of the most important things from every level, not just at the high end level where people want to watch elite cricket, but to the kids around in parts of Europe who are living, as 5 and 6 year olds now, in 20 years time, this is what you can achieve if you play at a local club and your team happens to be good enough in that domestic tournament or that domestic league to play on the European stage. I think it has the ingredients for everything that you want in developing a cricketing region. And to look at the way that Europe is now made up, the way that the 2020 has brought, immigration trends and things like that. And we have a melting pot, a large community of diversity in Europe where cricket is going to be played by a lot of people around. I can only see, European cricket moving towards, into the stratosphere in quality because, look, that's where all the numbers are going and that's where all the cricket's being played. And I think one more thought is that I think there were 18 teams at the European qualifier for the T20 World Cup, the last one that just went through. And I think every single team of that qualifier won at least one game. So it shows that there's parity amongst the continent. And yeah, I think, success breeds success and competitiveness breeds competitiveness. So I think we'll see Europe as the next region to potentially explode in quality over the next generation or two.
Yes. And the irony is if it wasn't for Daniel Weston going on a Tinder date, then none of it might happen.
That's exactly right. Yeah. He told me about that when I caught up with him a little bit earlier in the year. And yeah, he just said, like in this crazy world of
have him on
in this crazy world, things like that can just bring a light bulb moment, and the European Cricket League is the beneficiary of that. So yeah, it's a fantastic story and just great to see it unfold, and looking forward to seeing what it has in store in the future.
Shijinku says, your thoughts on T10 leagues in European regions, less time or entertainment? Do you think it's the perfect platform for developing cricket in Europe? I think the question's sort of already been answered, but we wanted to make sure it it was highlighted anyway. So thank you ever so much for your time, Dan, and getting up at a pretty early hour. We're really, really grateful for it. And eventually, on the right day, the stars aligned, and we got you on the show, having been sat in our virtual green room for 24 hours or so. So thanks very much, Dan.
If you stay ready, you never have to get ready, Michael. Thank you for having me.
And he finds his out. Brilliant. Take care.
Catch you, Michael.
So that was Daniel Beswick, and we are almost wrapped for the end of our very first show. Now, normally we'll be here on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. CET with a sort of hour-long show as we sort of wibble and wobble our way through all things European and world cricket. We've given you 20-odd bonus minutes because it is our very first episode on Facebook Live, and we thought we'd give you something extra. And we're now going to cross for one last thing to a man who always gives you a little bit extra. It is my co-host who you'll be seeing on a Thursday, standing by, ready, and he's got all the gear as well, the VOC Rotterdam shirt from the UCL 19 champions. Vin Sandeep, how are you doing, Vin?
I'm good, Michael. Love your work tonight. Yeah, it's great to be here on Facebook Live. And I'm kitted out in my VOC Rotterdam shirt, as you can probably see. And
the lights.
Oh, yeah, and the lights. I made the lights red. Of course, this is my version of the European Cricket Studio, and I'll be coming Thursday from 9 o'clock Central European Time. Love the job you've done tonight. And it was great to have Pierce Fletcher on, and Pierce will be super excited that I've got my favourite VOC player. Pierce, you know who that is? It's Peter Saylor.
Peter Saylor, the Dutch captain. Source.
Yeah, he's also Pierce. Pierce is New Zealander. That's no
Pierce has picked up a pair of nice painter shoes tonight that he'd previously given away to the Italian team, Jandra Brescia, in La Manga. So Roger Finer asking him for his shoe size and saying that we'll get that sorted is probably of some comfort to him. Now,
that's nice.
It's
a bit cheap of Pierce, really, but that's very nice of Roger. So thanks, Roger.
He has used our platform shamelessly to acquire his shoes back, but yeah, you got to do something to get these stars on, Vin. You've got to find a way to lure them in, and it was the shoes that did the job for Pierce. So we haven't just got you on for a social call. So there's a feature which is very much your idea that we're going to start having a go at on Thursday, but we wanted to introduce now with the two of us, called 1 and 1. The beauty of this is any of you watching now, Shijin Ku, who recently asked a question, or Mohammed Vasi, who's just asked one that I'm about to flash up as a comment. Anybody watching this stream right now, if you're here live at 9 p.m. CET, you can get yourself on the show. Don't just watch us and chat to different people from European cricket. So how do people do that, Vin?
Well, see, this is my kind of concept that I'm trying to bring to the Thursday show, this 1 and 1, because it's great when we have comments coming through and people type them, and that's great. But I want to see who's watching. I want to see you wherever you are. And with this streaming software that we have, we can send you a link and you can just come into what we call the green room and get the chance to ask me a question, and I'll get to ask you a question back. So 1 and 1. One question for the host, one question for you. And we want to see as many people as possible joining us on European Cricket Studio Live on Thursday. So I thought maybe we could do it now, Michael, just me and you. So I've got a question for you, and it can be about cricket, it can be about anything, it can be about your haircut. I know there's a lot of feedback coming in about that. It can be, it has to be fit for a family audience, obviously. But my question for you is, now we know you're not a very talented cricketer, and you admit that, and thanks for being honest. But if you could choose between playing a test match for England or being a commentator for an English test match, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question.
I know it's a good question. I'm an interviewer sometimes.
I know you are. Like me. We're normally used to answering. Sorry, we're normally used to asking the questions though, rather than answering them, which is a different thing altogether. I would think that playing a test for England would be quite embarrassing because, I'm a terrible opening batsman, so I would get 2 probably Goldens and go down in history as some kind of ignominious statistic. The guy.
No, I actually, sorry to interrupt, Michael, but I grew up in the era watching lots of England teams that you might have even found a way into. For example, in the 89 Ashes, I think you just had to be in the general vicinity of the ground, and have some gear and you're in the team. But so you think?
Yeah, there was an era before central contracts where England certainly used a lot of players. I know there was one Ashes series, I think it was involving Botham and Gatting, where England used something like 40 players in 5 tests, which was I might have got it slightly wrong, but it wasn't a million miles off. It was insane. I would probably go for the commentary option, just because of the as someone that loves calling cricket and tries to do it to the best of my ability, and absolutely loved doing it at ECL 19, and hopefully we'll get a chance to be back at ECL 21. That would be a huge privilege and honour, and something that I'd hope, providing I'm on my game, I could contribute in some slightly positive way on a good day. Whereas by being in the England team and just scoring no runs twice, I don't think you're helping anyone there, and then you're going to be remembered as the guy that rocked in for one test match and it was a disaster and the worst one test wonder ever. So
you're worried you're going to do a Bryce McCann? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, something like that, but with the bat. I'm sure somebody will dig it out, but I do wonder if there's anyone that's played in test matches. I'm sure someone has. Maybe I've got it wrong, but has played in test matches, batted in the top 5, played a test where they've batted in both innings and not scored a run and never come back.
That's a really good question.
If they have, that is pretty awful. And if you're out there and you're good on Cricinfo Stats Guru, feel free to go and have a look. My question to you would be on our theme of cricketing birthdays, which is our kind of broad theme from Monday that may well sort of creep into your Thursday chat. What's been your best or worst cricketing birthday story to follow off from Piers Fletcher?
Okay. Well, of course, in the Australian season, my birthday is actually April 23, which some people would remember from a couple of weeks ago when I shaved off my corona patch on my birthday. So I wouldn't generally play cricket on my birthday because our season normally finishes at the end of March. But I can tell you a sporting story from my birthday, which wasn't very fun. And that was I was playing Australian football on my birthday a few years ago when I was in my 20s. And unfortunately, I went to tackle someone a bit awkwardly and kind of got pushed into a knee. And so a knee hit me just in my head, and kind of I needed to go to stitches. So instead of going to my birthday dinner afterwards and all that, unfortunately, I spent most of the evening in emergency getting stitched back together. Because that's the real football, Michael, the Australian football. There's none of this. I'm a little bit hurt. Stop the game and look at me, and we'll kick the ball out of the stadium, and then there's none of that. It's like you get up. But anyway, I do love football as well, the association variety. But that's just a little dig at you because you're English. So anyway, that's the one-on-one. So they're meant to be really quick. We probably haven't been a great illustration of that with our chat today. But we want people to get involved. Join the chat. Come into the green room, and I'll bring you in, and we'll. And get you in one question, and we want to get as many people in and out as we can. It's your way to get involved in the show, and our little way to get you on the screen as part of the studio and get you involved in the community. So great job tonight, Michael, and look forward to seeing you next week. And of course, Mondays and Thursdays, same time. If you can't catch it live, of course, you can catch it back on the European Cricket Facebook page.
There you go. You're doing my job for me with the outro, Vin Sandy. And just before we let you go, to be totally clear, all you need is to be at home. You don't have to be necessarily dressed up or have a lighting home studio setup like we've got. It's just you and your camera and an internet connection. That's all we want.
A phone, a laptop, however you're watching, as long as you've got a camera and a microphone, then we'd love for you to be part of the show and join in the fun.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vin. And, well, he's here, so I can literally give the plug with him right next to us. But Vin Sandy will be with you at 9 p.m. CET on Thursday, which we've had this sort of journey through horrific time zones for our guests tonight. It's been around 7 a.m. for Piers Fletcher, around 6 a.m. for Daniel Beswick. Just how bad is it for you where you are? Because I understand that your apartment does have its own time zone.
Well, like lots of things of great beauty, I'm somewhat timeless, Michael, so I don't mind. And it's been a pleasure. I wish we could go for another hour and a half, but unfortunately, I think we're probably coming to the end of the first show.
Yeah, we certainly are. So thank you very much, Vim. We'll let you go there. But
see you Thursday.
See you on Thursday. So that was Vin Sandu, and that is pretty much us done. We've given you a bonus half an hour or so of content. Normally, it will be an hour on Thursdays and on Mondays. Vin on a Thursday with various guests, myself on a Monday with various guests. But we just decided that 90 minutes would be more appropriate for our very first show, which of course is about the amount of time it takes for a T10 match. 45 minutes, one team batting, 15 minutes stopping in the middle, and then another 45 minutes. Where have Europeans heard that before, of course, because the European Cricket League is the Champions League of cricket in Europe. But for now, from the European Cricket Studio, it's good night and goodbye.